welcome to the show, Rosebud. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to talk
Thank
to you.
you. Yeah, me too. Me too. I
Feel like
love
I
the
know
book.
you already.
I know. I feel like I know so much about you already because I read your book and I loved it. And it was like Bonnie McFarlane sent it to me and was like, would you be willing to read this and write a blurb? And I was like, sure, sure. And normally if I do that, I'll read like the first chapter and the last chapter and then like write a blurb about that. I read your entire book in a week and I am not a book reader. I don't like reading books.
Wow, that's such a compliment.
Yeah, it was great.
And then you feel like you know way too much about me. It's the thing about being a podcaster, being a writer,
Mhm.
having the brand of being unfiltered. You can't if you're gonna write about getting sober, you gotta write it all.
Yeah, you really do.
And then people can judge it, or either people relate and they
Hmm.
go, "Hello, friend,
Hmm.
you're reading my mind," or they go, "Wow, that person's really sick."
I know. Yeah, yeah. It's like you can't really walk it back after it's like in writing in a book. You can't be like,
Yes.
It wasn't actually that bad."
Well, the funny thing is that the point of writing the book at first was going to be that I considered myself, and not at the time that I wrote it, but throughout my years of being sober, I considered myself, high bottom, like very high functioning.
Yeah.
Um, and I was originally breaking some news here. I was originally trying to call the book High Bottom Girls. And
That's
the
great.
publisher didn't like the title because they're like, we don't know what that means and we don't think people will get it. And I was like, well, I'll explain it in the subtitle and in the book, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny because as I wrote, like the really personal, not pretty stories, like, trying to smoke heroin at one
Hmm.
point, people's attitude in the reviews was like, not that like high bottom, really,
Yeah.
not
You're
that high
like, oh,
functioning.
I know. That's so funny. People are like, okay, actually, and it's like that experience of like when you first get sober. I mean, especially if you get sober in the rooms, which I did, I was like, I don't think, I mean, my story's not bad at all. I was like, this is fine. And then the more feedback I got on it, I was like, oh, okay, right. Yeah. I guess denial's a real thing, you know?
Right. 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 Well, I tell this story. I didn't say this in the book, but I used to, at the beginning of my experience in the rooms, I would talk a lot about like, I don't know if I belong here. Like, I don't know if I'm like a true, like high bottom, the whole thing. I would love to share about that, about my feelings, about being like possibly not that bad. And one
Yeah.
time this woman came over to me and she was like, yeah, I hear you share a lot about, being high functioning. And she said, I don't know, driving drunk with your kids in the car, not that fancy.
Yeah. You're like, oh, okay. There really is nothing quite as humbling as like somebody that you in the back of your mind like look down upon coming up and giving you a reality check. You're like, oh, all right. I
Exactly.
I actually said, because we were talking about this before, but I just finished writing my own book, and I say there's one point in my book where I say like there is literally nothing worse than someone you dislike being right about you.
That is
That
so
feels
true.
so
What is your book?
it's called Fully Baked. It's a memoir. It started off as a series of essays that kind of I was writing the whole thing while I was going through like miscarriage and IVF, and then I got pregnant. 2 months after completing IVF, and was like, oh, I guess I'm going to do this now. Um, and it wasn't an ideal time to be pregnant. I was working at SNL, I was touring. I felt like this was like an important time in my career, but I also felt like it's an important time in my um biological like fertility window. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. And so I ended up like during my pregnancy getting all these like flashbacks throughout my life. And each time one of those happened, I would write an essay about it. And so it kind of becomes this like, oops, sorry, my dog. It becomes this thing where it starts with a moment in my pregnancy or a moment before or after my pregnancy where I go into a flashback of my past life, you know, and what it was like growing up and shit like that. It was basically just it became a memoir by accident.
I love that. I think a lot
Yeah.
of memoirs become memoir by accident.
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
writing more essays, but then as I was putting them in a linear way, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I guess this is more of a memoir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything about getting sober in the book?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, tell
So
me your story.
yeah.
Tell me your history, your past.
Yeah. So I grew up in DC, outside of DC. I was like my grandfather was Secretary of State under George Bush Sr. So, you know, architect of Reaganomics, just like unknowable, um, emotional Fort Knox. And so were all of my, you know, my dad and all of his brothers. And um, I talk a lot about my dad's side of the family because it was so overpowering, the mindset of that side of the family. And I think it had such a huge impact on my psychology because I was, you know, like many alcoholics, I was born and immediately was like, yeah, I don't feel like I fit in here. And and you know, I think there, no matter what environment you grow up in, if you have that feeling, it will be it'll be pronounced. But it felt especially pronounced for me because of this very strict, behaviorally uh I don't know, moderated environment that I was in, where it's like, you know, you put on a dress to go see your grandparents, you put on a dress to go out to dinner, it's like this, everything was very like image conscious, uh and I was kind of out of control. And by out of control, I mean, when I look back, I'm like, that's just a child. But you know, in that world, it was considered out of control. So I just kind of grew up with that sense of like, I am not right here. I've somehow ended up in the wrong family or ended up in the wrong home, or something went wrong. Some paperwork got like mixed up. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I tried really hard to kind of like fit in. I sort of mourned that I wasn't like normal. I can remember like falling asleep at night, like crying and asking my mom what was wrong with me at like a really young age, and being like, something is wrong with me. I'm too sensitive, or I'm too, something's going on. And I was like asking her for answers. I really wanted, like, I was like, whatever it is, I can fix it, you know? And my mom was like heartbroken, like just confronted with her kid being like, hey, I can fix myself if you guys just tell me what, you know. So I was put in like therapy and all of the stuff at like a really young age. Um, but all of it, no matter what, like it felt like the more attention that was paid to this problem, like the more out of place I felt. And it just kind of snowballed. In high school, was, they were like, you have to pick an after school activity that'll help get you into college. Because my grades had always been like shit. And so I was like, all right, well, there's nothing artistic here. So I don't know what to do. And they were like, well, cheerleading's like dance. And I was like,
Oh,
okay. So I did cheerleading, and I was kicked off the cheerleading squad. and I was like benched, and then just
Why?
kicked off. I think it was something, it was like a combination of things. I think I was like benched a few times for smoking weed, and then like eventually was just kicked off because there was this one girl who was like, I think talking shit about me or something. And I confronted her and was like, you're ugly. And like, just was like, basically just was like, you're an ugly bitch. And I don't, you know what I mean? Like, and so I was kicked off the squad, and then just kind of like leaned into this. It was really kind of funny looking back that I thought I was like this huge rebel for being kicked off the cheerleading squad, like when really it's like, I don't know, it's like being fucking kicked off of like a church team or something.
Oh,
It's
Girl
like,
Scouts.
you don't have
Yeah.
to be like a bad you know what I mean? But I was like, yeah, like kicked off the cheerleading squad, like leather jacket and fucking cigarette. And like really feeling myself. And like I was like, oh, I'm gonna lean into this fucking ex cheerleader rebel, and was like just smoking a lot of weed. And I don't know, man. I got into college like kind of by the skin of my teeth. I got into Emerson. I auditioned for their like musical theater program, which was, at the time I was like, oh, I could do really well with this. I had, I was a dancer throughout high school and through elementary school, and I loved singing and I loved theater. And so I got in as a musical theater major. Um, and then right before I left for college, my parents divorced. And then in the same year, my sister passed away. My younger sister, she was 7 years old. She drowned in a hot tub, um, right before it was at a graduation party for my graduation, but at a friend's house. So, like, we were all graduating, and we went to this family friend's home. And when I say that she drowned, it was like the drain, her hair got caught in the drain, and no one could pull her up. And um, just like horrible, horrible, horrible thing to go through. And I hadn't been drinking up until that point. I was like, I'm not going to drink because my mom was sober. And I was like, I have this feeling like maybe I might have that, I mean, I would hide, like food under my bed and be out playing with friends. And all I could think about was like going back to eat the food by myself. So I was like, there's things that I had little, um, clues about my own mentality. And I was smart enough to know, like, whenever my mom would talk about AA or talk about being sober, I was like, it seems like when something just brings like a tuning fork in your stomach.
Had
And
she always been sober like your whole childhood?
no,
So
no,
you had seen her drink.
yeah, I had seen her drink. I didn't know she was drinking, until we got like in an accident, a drunk driving accident. And then my mom got sober right after that. And we like, uh, and she started going to AA, and she lost her license for a year. And we had like a nanny that would like drive us, to and from things. And she had 5 kids. So it was like a lot of stuff to organize. And I paid attention to that, but I was also kind of at an age where I was like, I'm really just trying to focus on my friends and what I got going on. My mom, she obviously went through something. She's figured it out. We should be fine from here. And I was like, I'll take it from here. I got it. Like my life I got it. And
So you were refraining from drinking,
I was
but you,
refraining from drinking, and I was just smoking pot. Um, And part of that was literally like, I can smoke pot, but I can't drink. So I'll just smoke pot. So I was managing my drinking before I even started. Like, I knew enough about alcoholism for it to kind of ruin my experience of drinking from the jump. But I, after my parents got separated, I had my first drink because I was like, well, this is like in a movie. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, my parents got divorced. I'm gonna go, you know, first I get kicked off the cheerleading squad, which makes me a fucking rebel. And now I got divorced parents, which is like, suburban street cred. So I was like, I can go, I can go like drink at my friend's house. And got blackout drunk, um, woke up in the backyard of her house, next to my own throw up, woke up to the dog eating it the next morning next to me, and was like, I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I gotta do that again. That was awesome. Like, I was like, I feel like I found what my purpose is. Like, this is the thing that I'm gonna be good at. And this is the thing that makes me feel good about myself. This is the thing that like is giving me what I've like searched for my whole life, which is a sense of like confidence and a sense of knowing who I am and knowing where I belong. You know, alcohol and bars and people who like to drink and people who like to get fucked up were my kind of people. And that's what I wanted. I wanted like a community of people that I felt understood by and a world that I like could exist in comfortably. So it gave me all of those things. So, and then when my sister passed away and I was like off in college and I had all this like trauma that I didn't want to address, um, because I was going to college and this was supposed to be an exciting time in my life. And it's, everybody says like college is the best years of your life. I went to college in like a thick fog of grief uh and shock and just physical mental trauma that I had been through, because I do think that when you go through like a sudden death, especially the death of a child or the death of a sibling, there's like a physical toll to it. And so I went to college. I was like, I'm an acting major. I'll use all of this. And I got there and I was like, oh, I'm in the musical theater program. And I was like, I got a dead sibling. I'm like, I don't really feel like doing jazz hands right now.
Yeah.
So I shifted my major to just acting. And I felt like this is more my vibe. It's kind of like the actors were more like, they were like masturbatory goths. Like it was like emotionally gothic. And I felt like this is right. And so, I pretty much, I held it together for like 3 years where I was like, I think I'm good. I know I did really well in a school that was based in the arts. And I felt like I belonged there. Obviously everybody drank and everybody loved to drink. So that, no problem there. And then year 4, I really just kind of spun out. Like it was like once we were leaving, I really spun out. I stopped eating and then I was drinking to feel normal, but also like wasn't eating. So it was really like eating disorder plus alcoholism. And it was like violent outbursts that would happen. I would like, run into a friend on the street. I'd be like, what time is it? And they'd be like, I don't have a watch. And I just like deck them, just like hit them in the face. It was like horrible, like street assaults of like my friends. And nobody wanted to talk to me. Everybody just pulled away. I was like alone, on campus, and rightfully, like I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere near me. I was like, I was almost like those performance artists that you kind of like, you're like, and you like slowly back away because it's just uncomfortable to look at. I felt like one of those. And
You think you were just like having depression and anger issues?
I think there was like a lot of repressed like trauma, like real PTSD shit. Because it was again around graduation, right? It was like my first high school graduation.
Right.
And literally 4 years later, I was graduating college. And I just sort of, I mean, I never really put it together at the time. But when I think back, I go, well, that's a very easy link um, psychologically. And I look at it and go, of course, my drinking like spiraled out of control then. And of course, it was paired with like the trying to control the food stuff. So it was like this feeling of just being out of control. Um, and then having to like begin my life when I really didn't know, I hadn't really thought about what my life would be. I hadn't really thought about what it would look like. Um, and it was really terrifying, to face life as an adult because I felt very much stuck in this place of like, however old I was when my sister passed away. Um, and so I came to New York and that's, there was like a long period of time after graduating where I was like in Europe and having my sister like Western Union money to me and ran out of money. And my family was like, okay, you need to come home. We will send you to rehab. And I was like, I don't want to go I was like, okay, fine. The alcoholic where I was like, okay, great. Yeah, no, that's a good deal. So I'll go to rehab if you send me money and then I'll book the ticket and I'll book the ticket to rehab. And they were like, okay. So I booked a ticket that stopped in New York where conveniently a guy I was dating lived and brought a carry-on. Plane stops in New York. I get out at JFK. I take a cab to his place, call up my parents and go, hey, I'm not coming home. I'm not going to rehab, but I will go to therapy. And here is my boyfriend to vouch for me. So immediately made my boyfriend my caregiver and it just made his life absolute hell for the next like 2 years. The violence kept getting worse every time I would drink. It wasn't every time, but it was like I noticed that when it did happen, it got worse and worse, and it started to become more directed at myself, like punching walls, hitting myself, trying to run off the edge of a roof, and then like coming out of a blackout, like running full speed at the edge of a roof. Just things where I was like, oh, I'm starting to get a little scared, where like when I would wake up and I was sober, if I went near a window, there was this feeling in me of like, I can't go near a window because I'll jump. It was this, I didn't trust myself anymore. I didn't trust my own instincts. Even when I was sober, I felt like there was someone else inside of me trying to ruin my life. And that's really what it felt like. It really felt like The Exorcist or something. And so
And
even
were
when
you going to therapy like you promised?
I was going to therapy, but I was lying to my therapist. So it didn't
Interesting.
matter. It was like I was going to therapy for like eating disorder shit. Nobody even knew that I was like, in the therapy, that I was like, I was really struggling with alcohol. And um, and I wasn't about to tell them because in my mind, I was like, the alcohol isn't really the problem. I was like, the alcohol is not the problem. It's all this food stuff. It's like my sister, it's my parents. It was like all of this, it's all this stuff I've been through. And I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know. It's like I went from understanding alcoholism and knowing that I was one of them to being like, to having all of this evidence that I was one of them and being like, nah, it's not it. You know what I mean? Like,
It's so relatable though. Don't they say like alcoholism is the only disease that tells you you don't have a disease?
yeah. And it was, and I knew going into it that I had one. And I knew like from that first night that I drank, I was like, okay, I'm going to wait like 2 weeks before I drink again. And I got drunk the next weekend. So I was breaking I was making promises and breaking them to myself from the moment I drank. Like it happened immediately. I thought because I waited to drink that I would have like outsmarted it or like delayed it, delayed the onset or something. But it was literally from that first time for me, that I just started lowering my standards to accommodate my drinking. Um, and it wasn't until, I broke up with this guy because every time I would drink, we would get in these huge arguments and really, really bad. And cops would be called and like, we would like lie and say that we were like rehearsing for a play. It was like we had a whole thing. We had like scripts out and we could like hold up the scripts and be like, we're rehearsing, and they're like, it's like 2 a.m. But we got in a fight one night or one day, and I walked out. It was like right when he addressed my drinking for the first time, which is like the most scary thing for a codependent person to do, is to be like, hey, I think you have a drinking problem. Because the second he mentioned it, I went for a walk. I called my dad, right? Being like a fucking privileged suburban asshole, called my dad on this walk and was like, hey, I'm really getting my shit together, trying to like start over. I broke up with my boyfriend. I need my own apartment. And I got a new job. It was just sort of like saying whatever it was that my dad would need to hear. And was like, would you help me out with a security deposit? He was like, all right, fine. And I literally found this apartment on the walk that I went on after this discussion about my drinking with my ex. So come back. I look at him and I go, I'm moving out. He's like, what? I was like, I'm moving out. Sorry, it's not going to work out. Like, you don't understand me. I don't understand you. I just need to start over and be on my own, And it was like, he just looked at me like incredulously because I had put him through such hell. And then I just walked away. And it was, I look back at that, I go, that was like so heartless. And I just didn't even think about it. I was like, it never even occurred to me that I was hurting him. To me, I didn't even understand why people were so bent out of shape about me. I was like, I'm hurting myself. I'm not hurting anybody else, but it never occurred to me that it would hurt them to watch someone they love hurt themselves, because I was so self-centered that it never would have occurred to me to care about somebody else or their well-being. I mean, that's how self-centered I was. So I stayed in my own apartment for like a year, and it was really helpful because I isolated myself to the point where I couldn't point fingers at anyone else. I was so isolated. I couldn't be like, it's him or it's her or it's this job, or like, it was just me and my apartment and like piles of mail and dirty fucking clothes and like just living in this way where I was like, I'm furious all the time and there's no one around me to be doing this, like to be causing this anger. So what is this? It has to be mine. I got involved. I put myself up for like acting lessons. I did this work study program at William Esper. And I remember going into interview for the Bill Esper studio and him being like, asking me about myself. And I was like, I was saying like, I don't really need this. I'm kind of like, I'm an acting major, I already got the college degree. So, but I'm here, and if you want me, I can be here. And it was like I had no understanding of the fact that I was interviewing for a spot. And he was like, well, you might as well do the class. And I was like, yeah, probably. And he was like, I mean, what else are you going to do? Like sit around and think about yourself all day long? And I sort of paused because it was the first time that he had said something that was like mine, like sort of insulting, but it was also extremely accurate because that was my favorite thing to do, was like sit around and think about myself all day long. So
Were you
I,
working like a regular job at this point?
yeah, I was working at like, hold on. I was always working at like some kind of job, but I was also constantly getting fired from whatever job I was
I
doing.
got
So
fired a lot too, probably around
all
the
the
same age as you
yeah,
were.
just fired like every 3 weeks
Same.
or or like or it was like I was late and I was afraid of getting fired, so I would just say, hey, my stepmom died and I can't come in anymore. And it was like I was it was like if I was late more than twice, I knew that I was about to get fired, so I was like, let me just be the one to cut this loose, and I'd kill off a family member or two just to kind of cut ties without any questions. Um, which still I'm like so psychotic. Um, but
I
yeah,
got
so
fired from a job one time on my first shift for getting in
oh
an
my God.
argument with a customer. Yeah, I got
Yes.
a cocktail waitressing job. And the first night, one of the customers was drunk and like being rude to the busboy. And I was like thinking I was very self-righteous. I was like,
Yes.
I cut her off. I told her to get out. And then she was friends with the owner and they brought me into a back room at the end of my first shift. And they're like, yeah, it's not going to work out.
I did that too. I tried to kick out a customer as a waitress. They weren't friends with the owner, thank God. And the restaurant was such shit that they didn't care. But I did the same thing. I remember the manager coming over and being like, yeah, you can't do that. That's not your position here. Like I was like, she can't fucking talk to me like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
I was positive I was smarter than all restaurant managers. It was funny
Yes.
because I was a waitress, but I was definitely smarter than everybody who could run the restaurant way better than they could. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, sometimes I look back and I go, if I could just get like a little bit of the confidence that I had when I was an idiot, when I was like a true moron, I would just love to get a little bit of that confidence back. And
Hmm.
now it is helpful because I find that the more confident somebody is, the dumber they are. That is like across the board. I can pretty much, and I'm talking outward showman, like show pony confidence, that kind of confidence. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about unshakable self-worth. That's a different thing. But
No.
like kind of show pony confidence that you see a lot in comedy, I go, that's a dumbass. That right there, dumb guy. I mean, because I've had it and I was dumb. And, I kind of envy them. But I digress. I don't know what I was talking
So
about.
you worked at jobs, but now you auditioned for this acting, uh,
Mhm.
for the acting
Yeah.
studio.
Yes. And my first class, I was like, where are my drinkers? I was like, I need people to drink with. So I was like, where are my drinkers? And, you know, uh, everybody was like, oh, I drink. I was like, let's all go get a drink after the show. So we went after the class. So we went out, we got a drink. Everybody got a drink and they left. And I was like, what the fuck? And it was one guy who I'm still friends with, who was like, I'll go out with you. And so we went out until 4 a.m. And I don't even know where he went. I lost him at some point. I ran into some girl on the street. I was like, you should come drink with me. And she was like, oh no, I'm in AA. And my mom was in AA. So I was like, oh yeah, my mom's in AA. I know all about that. And she was like, well, you should, if you ever want to, you can call me. And I was like, I took her number because I was like, I don't want to look like I'm in denial. So I'll like take her number, but I don't need this. And the next morning, I blacked out the rest of the night. I don't remember it, but I did take her number. And I don't know how I got home, but I woke up on the floor of my apartment and I got a phone call from a job that I had not even been hired at. Like I was still training for this restaurant job and I was fired before I had my first day. Like I was still And it was just as a hostess in a restaurant where there were like 12 tables and 6 on one side, 6 on the other. It counted 1 to 6 up the right side and 6 to 12 down the other side. And I couldn't get it right. My brain could not keep track of like the path of the numbers. So I kept fucking up the number of tables. Anyway, they were like, this girl can't count, so we can't hire her. Like, we don't even know how she got a college degree because she literally can't count to 12. So I get fired from that job. I wake up, I get noticed that I'm fired. And I remember lying on my floor of my apartment, trying to cry so that, and I don't even know who I was doing it for. Like, I remember being like, like, just like trying to like, but no one was there. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, who are you doing this for? Like, you're the only one here. No one's watching you. No one feels bad for you. And something about nobody being there to feel bad for me made me go, I got a problem. Like, something's wrong. And I don't know why. I was like, it was that. And then the combination of this girl like giving me her number, where I was like, oh, I should call this girl, you know? And I didn't have any plan to get sober or anything. I just was like, you know, I'll treat it like a confession. Like, I'll go in and I'll confess to my sins. And then, you know, like in a week or something, I'll go out and I'll have like one drink and it'll be fine. Like, I'll be normal. And I went to a meeting that night. I remember I spent the entire day like wandering the city. I probably spent like 5 or 6 hours picking an outfit. And then I spent the next 6 hours just like wandering around the West Village, waiting for this meeting to start. Because if I didn't, I was like, I will drink. I'll change my mind or I'll drink. So I just kind of circled the block where this meeting was going to happen. And I went in and I heard people like talking about their life and the way they felt, and just putting into words things that I had lived with secretly for so long, that I genuinely believed I was the only person who experienced these feelings. And, you know, and it was like the way that they said it was like, you're not, they didn't say it in a way that made me feel like a victim either. They were like, you're not unique. Like, you're not. And I was like, oh, so it kind of it appealed to two different parts of my mind, which was one, the part of me that really needed compassion and understanding. And then two, the other part of my mind, which was like, I'm not interested unless it's a challenge. Like, I'm not interested unless it seems like I can't do it. Like, it's got to feel a little bit like a dare for me to sort of take any kind of interest in it. And the way that they said it was like, you're not unique. You're not that special. Shut up and listen. And I kind of was like, fuck you, you know, and fine. And it was like, so it was really, and then I kept going. I just kept going for like, you know, until now. Like, I keep going. And I don't go as often as I used to, but I will never stop because it saved my life. Like, it really saved my life. I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for getting sober. And the only way that I knew how to get sober was to have that community of people who made me feel understood. I mean, that's always been important in my life, just as a theme, is like, I've always been in search of like a community of people that I feel at home with, like a family outside of my family. Because again, you know, the one thing that I really haven't been able to shake, even through sobriety, even through 10 years and years of therapy and all this shit, is like, I don't feel entirely at home in my own family. And that is, you know, the more I understand about my family and the more I understand about myself, I go, that's nobody's fault. That is just the way it is. And I but it's beautiful because I have a family of my own now. You know, I have a family that I've created, and I have a chosen family, and like in comedy and in sobriety, that supports me and that I feel understood by. So it's kind of, yeah, I think that's pretty much like the beginning to end.
So what year was that you got sober?
2006.
7?
2000.
6?
Yeah.
Okay. I got
Mhm.
sober in 2009. So
Oh, really?
yeah, so you have been sober a few years longer than I have, but it does get easier, right? As the years go on, the idea of drinking being a solution to anything is just like further and further away
Yeah. Yeah. It
because
doesn't.
you have other tools. There is more space between feeling unhappy or going through changes in your life and thinking of a quick fix being the
Right.
solution.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember like the first time I took a Xanax and I was like, "Oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel. Like this is how normal people feel. This is how it feels not to feel the way I feel all the time." And
Yeah.
then I remember when I got sober, the bad news to me, worse than not being able to drink, was not being able to take Xanax, which I had decided was my magic elixir, my way to feel okay.
Yeah.
And realizing I'm going to have to sit with feeling uncomfortable. And that was the worst news. I was like, I don't know how anybody does it.
No.
And
Yeah.
there were times, and now like I guess it's that when you feel uncomfortable or when you feel those feelings where you're like, nobody understands me, you have the ability to go, okay, I'm gonna sit with this and I'm gonna let it go by. And I guess too, just the getting sober and knowing there's other people that feel the same way you do, you go, okay, other people feel this way. Because I think I'm just hearing in your story such a similarity with myself of just like nobody gets it. If
Yeah.
if people felt the way I feel, they would drink, they would take drugs, they would do something. How can people just like feel this way all the time?
Yeah. Like I was like, I'm not that can't be the way that I just like live my life. That's not, that is actually unmanageable. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
that feels more unmanageable than the drinking. Like the drinking, I can lie, I can cheat, I can come up with multiple ways to fix the, to like put a band-aid on the problems that I cause when I'm drinking. And I have an out every single time, which is I don't remember. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, but I wasn't really there. Like, you know what I mean? Sounds terrible. Really sorry about what you went through. I personally, no recollection. It's not ringing a bell. So I kind of had that out to be like, and it just felt like this is an easier fix than sitting with myself. That feels, I have no idea how to do that. I have no idea how to do that. And the idea of like, don't just do something, sit there, was impossible for me. Really, up until I was like 7 years sober and I was dating an alcoholic, an active alcoholic who, it was like my turn to be the codependent. And all my understanding of alcoholism went out the window. And I thought I could change him and I thought I could fix it. And I thought I could, you know, be like an angel. I could be like a human angel. And didn't really work out in my favor. He's like still drinking, as far as I know. And I ended up in like a domestic abuse situation with him and was like, I got to go to Al-Anon. And like, I really didn't know how to like sit down and just be in my own life until I was about 7 years sober. And like, once I'd broken up with him, I was like, okay, I've made other people my alcohol, like my alcohol. I focused on them instead of myself. what do I like to do? Like, what do I even like? And, I quit acting. I I was like, maybe I'll be a social worker or something. I don't know. Like, I just spent a year not working out because the way I worked out was like punishing. The way I worked out only when I felt like it. I ate what I wanted. It was like a year of just getting into my own body and like understanding what I liked and what I didn't like. And just those basic things. I needed to understand those. So I spent a year of just like self-care, really basic shit, walking my dog, brushing my teeth, washing my face, and and figuring out what my interests were. And I, by the end of that year, had done my first open mic. And I think waited like another 4 months before I got an invitation to go to a second open mic, and did that. And then was like, oh, I really like this. And I just started doing comedy like every night. And then my whole life like opened up. So it's just crazy how, how long it took me just to listen to my own life and to listen to my own body and my own mind, without reaching for a relationship or a means of controlling my food intake, or a means of punishing myself for nourishing myself, which was like a major thing. It's like I would eat and then I would like work out in a way that was really damaging. And so yeah, it was, but I'm so grateful because I have had this genuine like journey through, I don't even know how to put it, like I feel more self-actualized because of how long everything took. Like it just took me so long to learn these like basic lessons. And at the same time, I got sober young. And I hear people who got sober later go like, oh, but you got sober young and I'm so jealous. And I go, it didn't help, like, yeah, I got sober young, but I spent almost a decade of my sobriety really doing myself no favors, like really truly acting like I was still an alcoholic. I would be like in bathroom stalls with my friends who were doing coke, like being like, wow, looks fun, just like trying to be still cool with it and hoping that maybe they'll get sober. Like me sitting in a bathroom stall with somebody doing coke, it's like, which of those two looks more appealing on the surface? Like
Yeah.
nobody on cocaine going, sobriety sounds nice. Like, so,
So how long after you got, well, after you started being self-actualized and doing stand-up, did you get your first like TV writing job? Was SNL the first? Couldn't have been because
no,
that was much
no,
later.
no, my first writing job um, was the roast of Alec Baldwin,
Oh,
Controversial
okay.
roast of Alec Baldwin. And I had done a lot of roasts and like roast battles. And I would do like these, I think I did like 16 roast battles in a year because it was the only way that I could get my jokes in front of comics that were better than I was, like, where with comics that were in bigger clubs, comics that were passed at the Cellar, that were passed at like bigger clubs than I was passed in. And so I just did as many of those as possible just to kind of get my name out there as like a comic who could write. And did that, and then got hired for the roast of Alec Baldwin, and which I wrote on with Bonnie. And then did That Damn Michael Che, which was about maybe 6 or 7 months later. And then did season 2 of That Damn Michael Che, and then did the last season of Inside Amy Schumer. And halfway through that, I got hired at SNL to be a sketch writer at SNL. And that was in 2012. 2022.
Two,
Yes,
according
2022.
to your Wikipedia page.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah.
always correct, but and how
I'll
was
take
that
it.
environment? You know, you hear all the crazy things and that it's a pretty big like drinking,
Yeah.
probably weed environment. Was that hard at all to be in like a high pressure kind of thing and be the sober one?
No, not really. There's a lot of sober people
Oh,
now. There's a lot of sober people at SNL, which I was lucky to like have that. Um, and also I think the, when you're at the after parties, but you work there, it's not like you can really like go that nuts without it affecting things at work. So I wasn't like, oh damn, I'm really missing out on the part of this where we're all acting a fool. I mean, it's like it's changed a lot since the 70s where everybody was like really just crazy. And
right.
yeah, so I never really had trouble with that.
And then how long into your, I guess, sobriety did you meet your now husband?
Let's see. I met him in 2019, or 2018, but like really like started dating in 2019.
Right before
And
COVID.
yeah, right before COVID, right before COVID. And it was like I'd been in like a 5-year relationship with a guy who was my first relationship after that guy who drank.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like kind of a it was a little bit, it didn't start this way, but by the end of it, I was like, this feels a lot, it feels similar in that this person is like they don't drink, but they smoke weed in a way that makes it look like it's freaking heroin, and I was like, and I never really tried to say anything, but once I caught myself wanting to be like, hey, maybe don't, like maybe try not to, if you feel like this way about your life, maybe it's this. And obviously that was not met with like open arms. It wasn't like a welcome suggestion. So, and I also found that like outside of that, I was being promised things in the beginning of the relationship, like marriage and things like that, where I was like, those are getting further and further away. And it feels like we're not moving towards those, so eventually I left, and I was like, it was harder to leave because there was no big dramatic thing, but it was like I'm leaving because of the things that I want. And about a year later, I met Andy, or re-met him, was like interested, and started dating him, and was like, I was like, I'm going to go into this a little bit differently, and I'm just going to say exactly what I want, which is like, hey, I'm looking to get married. If you're not interested in that, I think I need to move on. Like, I really, really like you, but if that's not something that's like in the cards for you, I gotta keep it moving. I gotta go like start fucking other people, like stat, And so he was like, no, I don't want that. He's like, I would consider marriage again, and I'm not opposed to it. And I was like, okay, well, it doesn't have to be, I know that this is like kind of a weird way to walk into things. I'm not saying like, hey, marry me tomorrow. I'm just making sure that you're interested in something like that, so that if things feel good between us, that's a possibility, and that's not going to be like taken away, because that's something that I dealt with. And he was like, no, I hear you. And like, he was also sober, um, and for a while, and was in therapy and was like working on himself. So it was like I felt like I could really trust what he was saying. Um, and he like, I think he proposed like 9 months in. We were like, it was right, maybe we were like 3 days into lockdown. So, two alcoholics don't really deal well with boredom. So we were like, let's change our entire lives. Let's get a dog. Let's start a podcast. Let's get engaged. We like, we did all of it, and got married in September of 2020, which was great, by the way, because you don't have to like invite a ton of family. You can
Yeah.
just, you'd be like, hey, we'd love to have you there, but we're trying to save you. So yeah.
And then you had your baby
Hmm.
only a couple years ago. So a couple years in to that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you had a miscarriage
I had,
first?
I had multiple miscarriages. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Um, thank you. Yeah, it was funny because I didn't really want kids. I wasn't really interested in like the loss of freedom, and I wasn't really interested, honestly, in like the love. It just scared the fuck out of me. And, having a sister who passed away at like a young age, it really brings up a lot. And so I was really terrified of that. But I got pregnant by accident and had a miscarriage, and then was like, oh, well, okay, it's meant to be. It's like, I don't want kids. So, but then it just kept like, it was like in the back of my mind being like, hey, remember we got pregnant? Like that was kind of sweet. Like it was like this thing in the back of my mind after that, where I was like, wait, do I want this? And then so we started trying, and then we had another miscarriage, and this time it was like I was like 11 weeks or something, and like couldn't establish care for the pregnancy, like healthcare wise. And so it was diagnosed as a missed miscarriage. So like the embryo, like it hadn't made it past, I think it was like 7 weeks, but my body didn't know that I wasn't pregnant. So my body kept developing as if I was pregnant, like 11 weeks, 12 weeks. So then when I found out, that one was really devastating because I had that, and I had to shoot my special like 3 weeks from that date.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So I had this miscarriage, and then had like the DNC, which for some reason couldn't be scheduled until like 2 weeks after the miscarriage had been diagnosed. So I was just walking around knowing that I'd had a miscarriage, waiting for a DNC, and finally had it, and uh, had to get on the road the next week to do a run of shows to prepare for my special. So it was like I was like alone in the Midwest, trying to like run jokes for like places that didn't believe in COVID, because that was the only place you could perform, and feeling like really out of body and crazy. And then shot my special, which was healing in a way, because it felt like, okay, well, I have delivered something, you know. And then for about, it was a long time before I tried again. It was like a long time before I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want kids. Like, forget this. This is like too wrought with like pain at this point. And had this conversation with my mother actually when I went home, and was like really torturing myself because my sister had a baby at the same time. My sister was pregnant, like right after I had my miscarriage. My sister was like, hey, I'm pregnant. And then she had her kid. And so I was just like, and my best friend got pregnant at the same time as me. She had hers. It was like all around me, people were having their babies. And I had this feeling of like, I guess I'm just not going to. And so I just put it away until I went home. And my mom has this way of like drawing out whatever like vulnerabilities I have. And so she was asking me like how I was doing, and I was like, I just don't know what to do. Like I'm like, I don't want to get pregnant right now because I just got hired at SNL, and I just like, I can't do that job and be pregnant. And, she was like, why don't you try IVF? So I did IVF, completed IVF, we did great. I like, it was an ideal, thing for us was we got more embryos than we thought we were going to get. And and then 2 months later I got pregnant, like naturally, like the old fashioned way. And and yeah, it was kind of crazy. So I was just like, all right, if this is happening now, it's happening now. And sure enough, like I had my baby and I went back to work and I did my last 2 years at SNL as a mom.
That's amazing. Okay, so now bring it home. You do a podcast currently?
No, no,
Okay.
my husband and I had one during the pandemic.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But you just wrote a book.
Hmm.
Do you have a release date?
I don't have a release date yet. I haven't like done an announcement, like a formal announcement
Oh,
up for it yet,
okay.
but it's like I'm supposed to before November 10th. So should be out soon. Uh and
But it
yeah,
is called Half Baked.
no, no, it's called Fully Baked.
Oh, Fully Baked. Fully
Yeah,
Baked.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And
And you're touring. Do you have any this will go up like around the time that you're going to start announcing your book. So do you have any dates you want to
oh, yeah,
plug?
absolutely. Let me
Do
find those.
it.
Hang on a second here. Um, just got to remember my own website. Yeah, I'm gonna be let's see, November 7th and 8th. I'll be in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't know if this is coming out before then, but I'll be in Tulsa.
We might miss
And
that one.
okay, Rosemont, Illinois, November 21st through the 22nd. Wilmington, North Carolina, December 12th and 13th. Sunnyvale, California, January. Salt Lake City, Philadelphia, Seattle, Portland, Charlotte, Austin, Chicago, Albuquerque. Yeah. And there's more dates that are being added. So
So
yeah.
can people check your website
Yes, it's
for that?
rosebudbaker.com.
Okay. And your Instagram.
Instagram's Rosebud Baker, TikTok's Rosebud Baker, YouTube is Rosebud Baker. So yeah.
Well, I will put it in the description of the episode, all the places. I thank you so much.
Thank
What
you.
a great story. And
Oh, thank
with a
you.
happy ending.
Yeah.
A
Well,
really
give me
happy
time.
ending.
I might fuck it up, you know?
All right. Thank you, Rosebud. Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Bye.
Life is good, yeah. Life is good.